Where do I start? I'm Christina. I'm a researcher at the Montfort University in my paid life and work on social aspects of infertility as a trained anthropologist, gone sideways into sociology. In my other life, I'm also a yoga teacher and a COVID-interrupted acro yoga teacher. How I can play more and work less and not make money, but just live and cover rent, but mostly how I can play more and work less. Mindset. Where I put my focus on, mostly that. I know it's tricky to answer. I think well, in line with the first answer I gave, my mindset is that I want to play more and work less. But I also have quite a mindset of working efficient on what I do, because the reason why I work on what I work on is because I have an activist approach to it. So I work on infertility and the ways of how infertility can be resolved with modern technology, and that includes surrogacy and egg donation. These are my specialties. And in a lot of countries, this is very poorly regulated, which results in potentials for exploitation of the women who provide eggs and the women who provide the reproductive labor as surrogates. And so I want to get to an understanding of what lies behind the power dynamics that are behind, to get to the data, to then make it available for a better understanding, for potential better resolve of the issues that I see as unjust and exploitative. But I don't want to spend my whole life doing that. So my mindset to that is working efficiently on the topics, but not letting it overly consume my life. But this is like my profession as an anthropologist, and in some regards my vocation, but not to the point where I want to only do research and sacrifice my time and happiness and health, and mostly my mental health for it. So try keeping that balance between what I do to make a living, but ideally on something that is just and useful, and having time for myself and doing the things I want. I did not expect to go into research when I started university. I started university kind of because that was the thing to do. That was the opportunity that was open to me, and I was lucky to get scholarships throughout, so I never had to worry about accumulating student debt or any loans. And once I got into research as a PhD and earning a living with it, I think I got a bit, in the beginning, too much drawn into it, and then realizing friends and colleagues getting really sucked into it and not having time for anything else anymore, and being at this threshold of working crazy hours just to be publishing and competing and having this kind of elbow mentality of being the first to publish in something and being that voice in the field. I stepped a little bit out, and was really glad that I found not just yoga for myself, but as teaching and having another possibility to just potentially make a living, but kind of move a little bit away from the competitiveness of academia, and give it the time that I'm paid for, and and really making a conscious decision, especially beginning of this year, to spend less time with work and more time with doing things that I just like to do. I don't know how to answer that. It really depends on what mindset they have. I don't know. It's hard to give a general answer to this. It really depends on what mindset it is and how I like it. The quality on which I base my decision making and my life choices. I expected that coming. To live in a way that doesn't cause harm to others, and that is simple and I want to say light in both the terms of not heavy, but also in bright and in shining and taking a light approach to anything that comes up, which is not always possible, but just trying to keep it in mind. It's the intention I set for myself for tasks and practice, and yeah. I value integrity in people and generosity, and I value honesty and, again, simplicity. I spend my 9 to 5 usually in front of a laptop at the moment. I wish I could spend that time being out and about and interviewing and researching with people. I also spend some of my time teaching through a laptop when I teach yoga, and I wish I could just be spending it teaching people in parks and studios and places. And I spend the time else with a lot of yoga, currently training capoeira on my own, and reading and compiling a photo album of all my travels, with writing down anecdotes and stories about it, and with writing letters in general and talking to people, and dragging things around your garden, and sitting in the sun. That is, at the moment, my favorite activity when the sun is out. Do you want to know what I think it values or what I think it should value? So I think it goes a bit array, and too much of value is put, or too much attention is put on turning things into money and keeping an economic system running that isn't really working for us as like the general good. It values a hierarchy and keeping a hierarchy in place that I also don't really agree with. And it seems to value an efficiency that leaves people behind, that don't fit into the system as it has been created, as we have created it over the past decades or centuries. Enough. That can be a whole book. Let me start with simple things. I think I have plenty of enoughs, as in I've got enough time to myself, I've got enough money to pay rent, and I've got enough money to pay for food, and I've got enough of all the essentials of clean water and a healthy body. What is enough? I think everything is enough. What we don't have enough of, thinking beyond myself, is seeking reconciliation and justice for damages and injustice we have caused. We don't have enough is valuing and appreciating differences and the beauty that comes out of having time and not feeling guilty about having time to just do things we like to do and get better at things we like to do without immediately thinking about how that can become an economic factor that earns us money. I could go on with a lot of things. How many answers do you want? But there's plenty of definitions of what well-being is and what health is. Funny because I've just been lecturing on that. But just for myself, it's the very fluid state of just feeling happy in the physical and mental state I'm in, and feeling energetic and excited about doing things, and just having a positive onlook to a task, life, anything that life throws at me. And I haven't appreciated it as much before I went into kind of a dark place over the first lockdown, when I was just noticing that I wasn't well. And I didn't understand before how it is really hard to leave a place where you feel mentally unwell. Basically since last year, less before, but mostly since last year, throwing a lot of things that are thrown at me in my mental chuck it in the fuck it bucket and just not doing them, or not taking them as important if they just don't serve me or make me happy. And by just addressing things that are distressing me or troubling me with friends more often and more openly. And that is one that I noticed again more intensely last year, is that I don't feel well emotionally or mentally. I don't eat well, or I tend to not eat at all, which doesn't make it any better. So then I kind of sit myself down and remind myself that it doesn't serve anyone if I make myself suffer physically as well by not eating well. So then I just put extra effort into eating well, as well as, again, just telling somebody. And then I notice how silly it is that I punish myself for not feeling well, and that usually helps for me to snap out of it. Yeah. And then in general, just being very active and basically not really letting any day pass without doing handstands, headstands, and rolling around on the floor. Resilience is a funny one, because resilience I used to consider as just coping with things without struggling. And I learned for myself that resilience is coping with things while struggling and just acknowledging a struggle and moving on. And strength, pretty much the same, just as an ongoing practice to that, where I allow myself to acknowledge that I can't be strong and resilient all the time, or just that even accepting that means resilience. Does that make sense? sometimes looking back at things I have achieved at good times or at difficult times, and just patting myself on the shoulder thinking, oh yeah, not bad. Look at what you were able to do. So don't make yourself small because you can do amazing things. Sometimes from books I've read, inspirational other people, and very often from, again, just giving a shout to people who remind me of like, but look at all the amazing things you are, and more about being and rather than doing. So more of the person I am to them than the things I do. So yeah, I often need an outside reminder to kind of remember my strength, and then I can just tap into it again. I've needed it mostly in the beginning of lockdown, because all my coping strategies to workload and stress involve other people. They involve seeing people, meeting people. They involve mostly climbing on top of other people. When I practice acro yoga, they involve teaching people, and I usually would be out of my house at 8 in the morning and not get home until 9 in the evening, and that I would be constantly meeting and mixing and interacting with people, and that silence and absence of input and stimulation and just care and love from others, yeah, that just threw me in a really dark place. Yeah, they connected. For some of them I saw coming. I guess opposing what I see as my values and where I assess values in society, and the same with strength and resilience, and where I draw my own from, that all connects. Yeah. I've kept a lot of, I'm in many different communities, and I noticed especially in the communities around acro yoga, we're really holding each other, because the whole idea around acro yoga is, obviously there's the physical aspects of it, of all the monkey business of climbing and balancing and yeah, very much a physical practice, but beyond it is the community and the mutual trust and the listening to each other and holding space and holding each other and caring for each other. And I noticed that the longer we were all separated and not able to do it or to practice, the more we've been looking out for each other and checking in, and kind of checking in that we're doing well, that we are reminded of that better days will come. And yeah, yes, so I could see those encouraging and giving each other reminders about our strength and practicing resilience there, and also reminding each other of values we have and intentions, and again, to go to the very beginning, the mindsets we had of wanting to, kind of sitting there preparing ourselves to restart community building, because that's also one strong thing I see in acro yoga, is building small strong communities. And I see us sitting there at the starting halls waiting for us to officially be allowed to go out and start connecting people again. And I find it lovely to see how everybody's gearing up for it, and in the meantime keeping an eye on each other to make sure we're getting there collectively. I noticed how talking about the resilience or the bad parts of last year really still get to me. But other than that, no.